Welcome to Scorched Earth and the general reading for the sign of Aquarius, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of December 2024. I hope you are well. I'm using the Night Sun Tarot for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is via the first link in the description box. I think it's the first link, it should be. Anyway, that's quite enough of that. Let's have a look and see what's going on with you. 3 cards for Aquarius, please. Whoa. Okay, well, we have the Star card in your recent past. There it is. About current energy, please, for Aquarius. Ooh. We have the Moon card. Alrighty then. And what's coming towards Aquarius, please, for the month of December. A lot of things flipping. Oh, interesting. Judgment, the Devil, and the World. Right, I need to do something here. There we go. I'm going to cover up the offending articles. That is 5 major arcana cards, Aquarius. And the card at the bottom of the deck is the Ace of Swords. That's your ace. It speaks to issues of truth, for sure, which is the highest vibration of all. Let us not forget. But it talks about a whole new way of seeing the world, right? For me, because the sword suit represent everything to do with the workings of the mind, it's about rationality, it's about reason, it's about logic, but it's also about communication. What we hear, what we say. You know, when we hear things, what level of filtration do we run it through before we arrive at what we think the meaning is of something, you know? When the Ace of Swords shows up, it feels like there's a clarity coming, or there's a clarity arriving, rather, that seeing some of that filtration system shifted out of the way in pursuit of truth rather than comfortable lie, I guess. But I'm actually really rather staggered by the number of major arcana cards on the table. Now, there was somebody else, another sign, who had quite a lot of major arcana, not this much. Who was it? It might have been Capricorn. I can't remember. And that would be interesting. Like 2 traditionally Saturn-ruled signs, both showing up with this big universal forces at play on them at the moment. For sure. Let's get some clarifiers out on the table, and then we'll start to make some sense of this, if indeed we can, because it looks like you're in a highly pressurized state at the moment, and this is definitely going somewhere. So tell me about the Star card. Why is that here for Aquarius, please? Oh, Page of Wands on its side. Fuck's sake. Oh, go ahead. And the 5 of Swords. Okay, makes sense. Tell me about the Moon, please. What's the Moon here? We have the Queen of Wands. And the 4 of Pentacles. And then what about these 3 here? Why are these here for Aquarius? More sideways cards. Chariot on its side. Queen of Cups in reverse. Gee, whatever that was. 6 of Swords and 2 of Pentacles. But the 6 of Swords came up crossed like that on its side. And we have the Moon at the bottom of the deck. So if you have no idea what's going on at the moment, I'm going to fiddle with my lighter while I talk to you. I think that's exactly where you're supposed to be, if I am honest. You know, we have one card that represents clear thinking, an expansive approach to the perceptions of the material world, right, and making sense of things with this Ace of Swords. But then we have, additionally, this more obfuscatory energy of the Moon that seems to be distorting and clouding everything, so that truth which we crave, that very clear route forwards, seems to be occluded somewhat. there's no doubt in my mind that you're feeling either at least very complex right now or exceedingly confused. We start over here with the star. Now, obviously, this card represents Aquarius. And so whenever we have a card that's representing the sign that we're talking for, we're always leaning into ideas of identity and what do we stand for and what are we about and all those kind of things. How are we interacting with the world and how is that changing? Because I always think that when the mind returns to issues of who we actually are, when there's no intention to change, we don't go there. That's the point that I'm trying to make. So if we arrive at the point where we are there, we're either looking to change or we're recognizing that something has changed and we're trying to make sense of it. Now, sometimes that comes up by way of changes in the environment, or, suddenly we're not getting on with people that we used to get on with. And the question then becomes why? Well, quite often it's because you yourself have changed, and where you were once a match for this situation, now you're really not. And all of this kind of pushes you towards taking that step away from what is comfortable and familiar into less familiar ground. And even you, Aquarius, have, a comfort zone. Everybody does. It just looks very different to most other people's. Now, the star additionally talks about our highest goals, hopes, dreams, aspirations. It talks about healing. And for me, it is profoundly connected to connection. And there are reasons for this, and I won't bore you with them at the moment, but I kind of thought this one through quite a lot, and the natural corollary of the way that I thought about it was to end up at this point where it's about open, honest, vulnerable, and exceedingly authentic communication. Like, we bare our souls to the world, and those who are worthy will respond, right? They'll see that, they'll be like, I dig that, that's the direction that I'm going in. You find yourself kind of pulling those people in. The fact that the Page of Wands is on its side here and the Five of Swords is down here starts to give us this idea of complexity around the idea of what it is to be you, what it is to stand for whatever you stand for. What it is to be you contemplating your own healing, because I do think that there's some of that going on here too. This is Venus in Aquarius, is it not? So, we could say there are questions around what it is that you have valued in the past versus what you are beginning to value more so now. The Page of Wands, for me, does not indicate movement. It's the preparatory stages before movement. I mean, it's, the way that I've described it sometimes is like, when you book your holiday and you get very, very excited about it, but it's like in 6 months in the future and you're like, well, I need to put that to one side and forget about it. There comes a point where you're like maybe 3 weeks out or something like that and you're like, oh God, right, I need to find my suitcases because I'm not sure where they are. Maybe I need to buy some new clothes, right? So that would feel nice. And it's about the preparation before the movement, where the excitement is starting to build. And that's not here. Now, it's not completely absent, and it hasn't gone because the Page of Wands is not in the reverse. It's here, but it's not really interacting with anything. The one suit represents the actions that we take, our behaviours, our experiences, and certainly in the case of the Page of Wands, a certain amount of enthusiasm and excitement about those experiences that we are about to have. And when a card shows up sideways for me, it's like its energy is present, and this has been happening a lot over the December readings. Its energy is present, but it's not yet properly activated for some reason or another. And then we have this card here. Now, you can talk about Pyrrhic victories in terms of the Five of Swords. You can certainly talk about self-sabotage. You can talk about, winning, but at what cost? Very much Pyrrhic victory kind of territory. But we've got a kind of instability that is coming in around all things to do with the workings of the mind and communication and one's logic and reason and rationality and whatnot. Quite simply the way that we think that is coming in here. Now, that's a very important process to go through as we break free from what we thought, we held to be absolutely, the truth of some given matter. we're always switching it out. And I think maybe you get to a point where you realise, like Socrates, like you literally know nothing. You look at children and teenagers, and the things that they know or that they believe that they know become absolutely the pillars of their existence. And over time, we start to question those things that have acted as the foundations, acted as the pillars in our lives, right? But we never just let those go. What we tend to do is replace one pillar of fact, of evidence, of belief, of whatever, with something else. And if we're doing our work properly, it's not nearly as rigid as it was. But for the most part, I think most of us are just switching out one set of beliefs for another, or we're switching out one, understanding of a situation for another, rather than kind of standing back, holding up our hands and go, literally, and this is very much how I feel. The older I get, the less I know. I become more aware of what I don't know than any kind of reliance on what it is that I do know. And there's something questioning very hard here for you, Aquarius. Like I said, this question of who you are and what you stand for and what you're here to do and what things about, there's a great deal of pressure on you at the moment. And, obviously Pluto has moved into your sign. And although that's very slow moving, it is incredibly intense. To say, when I had Pluto moving over my ascendant, it was just like 16 years of gross intensity. There's no other way of putting it, really. And I just kind of assumed that was my life. Probably wasn't correct, but it certainly felt like it at times. Tell me about the star card, please. Yeah, 8 of Pentacles. There's this feeling. This is Pisces, Knight of Cups. Saturn is currently in Pisces. But you know what else is in Pisces? Neptune is in Pisces. And Neptune seems to be slipping below the radar, or most people's radar, in terms of being a contributory factor in how everybody is feeling at the moment. And I think that is a massive mistake, personally. It's almost like Neptune's just kind of blended into the wallpaper and nobody's noticed that they're there. But Neptune is also, with a big stick, kind of just poking everybody while they're not looking and creating this distorted sense of what is going on in the room. So what we've got here is the 8 of Pentacles indicating your great work. It can indicate many other things besides discipline, commitment, these kind of things. It can talk about the thing that you actually do for a job, and some of you may have been contemplating changing career or changing, how you earn your pennies, or this kind of thing, realizing that what you've been doing does not light you up and does not bring you any kind of excitement, or that frisson that we associate with the Page of Wands, where it's like that thrill of I'm actually really excited to do this thing. Like, none of that for some reason is in alignment with you anymore, not what you have been doing. But the question is then, what could you do instead? Now, I've just tacked this on specifically to work or something like that. But I feel we've got to take a big picture view of what's going on here, because there's so much major arcana. And the question is for you, Aquarius, how do you bring all of this down into you to be something meaningful, right? Where is this going? Where is it taking you? Because it feels to me like it's too intense to be able to sustain as you are. And like I said, it feels like you're trying to move from your comfort zone into something bigger. Did we not talk about this last month? There was a sense of trying to push things or rush things a little bit. I honestly can't remember. But then this card puts a really interesting spin on things, because yes, we could talk about it in terms of offering one's cup and the things that we usually say about the Knight of Cups. Taking that really rather open, emotional approach to things. But it could well also be talking about the energy of Saturn, who does seem to be terribly active at the moment. Now, he stationed direct Was it in November sometime? I feel like it was in November sometime. I forget the date, I'm sorry. After having been in retrograde for some time, and now he's moving forwards, it's almost like the work is beginning here. And where I told you last month that it was really important not to rush, not to push, just allow things to happen. We've got very much that same kind of energy with the Knight of Cups in allowing things to happen, allowing things to flow, but recognizing where the work is, where the commitment must be. Now, all of this happening at the same time that you seem to be questioning what you're here for and what you're supposed to do and what role do you play moving forward, seems to me to be really interesting, because from my objective position, standing back here and looking at you, it seems to me that you can feel how much energy is running through you here at this point, and you know it is pushing you somewhere, it is taking you somewhere. But this energy of the moon that we see here and here is creating a distortion over the top of it. It's making things a little bit illusory. Like, I've used the example of like the mountains that I can see out of my house. By moonlight, they don't lose their size, they don't lose their shape, but they certainly lose their detail compared to what it looks like in the day. And we must always be mindful that when things are happening under the light of the moon, we aren't seeing all of the details, and we're not supposed to. But quite often it's less about looking out there and trying to peer at what the details could be, but recognizing that this is a sign that it's time to go within and kind of fidget about in there and see what it is that we want to stand for, what it is that we want to commit to. Because the energies of the Queen of Wands and the Four of Pentacles feel a little, to me, like they could be pulling in two different directions. Now, there's another interpretation that we could talk about that actually sees those hand in hand. But let's go with the first one first, because it's the first one that occurred to me. The Queen of Wands wants to be free, to move, to be autonomous, to be sovereign. This is very, very important to the Queen of Wands. I get the impression that of all of the queens, she's the one who kind of moves around the most, right? And you would expect that for Wands. It's Aries energy, so she's not going to sit still for too long. But she is also incredibly independent. Totally autonomous in terms of what she's doing and where she's going and who she's associating with. Interestingly, I feel like the King and Queen of Wands actually spend less time together than the rest of the kings and queens, because they're off doing their thing and they come back, they swap stories, do what fire signs do, and then probably bounce off in opposite directions again, right? She wants to be incredibly visible at the same time. This is a much more contracted energy. We sometimes call this the miser card, and it's about clamping down on energy rather than outwardly expressing energy, which fire signs do, but also air signs, right? It's all about the outward projecting. And this is why these signs are masculine, right? It's active, expressive, external, where the feminine signs are internal. The feminine energies are internalization and processing and whatnot. So yes, expansive energy, contracted energy, and it feels a little bit like there's a push-pull. Which direction do I go with this? Am I supposed to be grounding myself and rooting myself and holding on very tight to things? And that would be particularly around the idea of your identity, what you stand for, why the fuck you're here, all that kind of thing. Or am I supposed to be just letting, the galactic energy of Aquarius out for everybody to see? Additionally, actually, just while we're on the subject of that, there seems to be some concern, which is fairly uncharacteristic for you, Aquarius, of putting your head too far above the parapet. Like Queen of Wands. That's just very, very interesting. The strength for me is all about personal expansion, right? There's no way of looking at that Leo strength card as not being something that is expansive and filling a room. But again, the energy of strength reversed is quite contractive if that's a word. I'm not even sure that that is a word. And there seems to be this, I'm not sure which way I should go. Now, we know that there are issues out in the world, and in certain countries that have been previously known for the rule of law and, laws being fair, open and prospective and whatnot, that we're seeing somewhat of a reduction in the protections that have been offered by such things before. And I wonder if, Aquarius, for some of you, you have very, very clear opinions on what's happening right now. And for the first time in maybe ever, you have some genuine concerns about opening your mouth about things. Now, the Strength card reversed is not weakness. It is not cowardness. It isn't cowardice. It's not any of those things. It's that sense of kind of pulling. I don't really want to expand out into this place. I don't really necessarily want to be visible. Queen of Cups reversed. I'm a little concerned about what I may be attracting towards me. That I may be forced to internalize. You seem to me to be very, very uncertain at the moment, Aquarius. And only in one specific way. Because everything else that you are seems to have been screaming out for the energy of Pluto to approach. Right? I think it's been a long time that Aquarius has really wanted to let rip on all things, with all things Aquarian out on the collective. Because, one of the ways in which we understand Aquarius energy is the ability to look back at the structures, right, formed in the sign of Capricorn and visualized in the sign of Sagittarius and go, yeah, but did it work though? Maybe we should do this instead. Maybe we should just try this or this thing over here. And it's, Pluto entering your sign has almost felt like you've had a carte blanche to be able to start bringing more of that up to the surface than perhaps you might have necessarily before. And there's a certain openness to it amongst the collective that wasn't there a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, right? But then one very small part of you is exceedingly concerned about something, revolving around the idea of visibility and being seen. Now, I did say that there was a way in which I could see these two working together quite well. And that would be if we looked at the Four of Pentacles and instead of seeing it as being a contracted, clumped down energy, being that more of what are my core values, what are my core principles, if everything else falls by the wayside, what is the one thing or the two things or the three things that I hold so dear, that create my ethical backbone, if you will, that dictate all of the actions that I take hereafter. What are those things? If I could articulate them, or even, didn't try and put them into words, but put them into a feeling or a response to something, like what would that be? Because it does feel like an ethical backbone. This is the thing. And then being seen to be doing those things. I mean, it doesn't really matter which way you cut it. I mean, the star is an incredibly visible card. It represents an incredibly visible energy. Now, the moon is also incredibly visible, but it's not emanating its own light. It's not a true luminary. It's reflecting, apparently, the light of the sun. And it doesn't do it well enough to give us a true indication as to what it is that we're actually looking at, whether we're looking within or looking without. Because there's distortion, illusion, blurring of details. And there's this interesting dynamic going on between you inside, who you want to be, who you believe yourself to be, and you outside, which you would hope would very much match your inside. But something here seems to be giving you pause for thought, and it's that pause for thought. Am I actually protected enough to do this? Am I actually safe enough to do this? Where do I draw the line in terms of what I'm prepared to accept and what I'm not? What is it that is going to pull the pin on my desire to protest or rebel or do any of these things, right? And I'm talking in quite broad terms here, but we could see how this would play out across lots of different situations and environments. We could see it playing out between, like a power dynamics between you and a boss. Oh, fuck, yes. Please do also remember that Mars and Pluto are doing this little dance of opposition. As I record this right now, they've just separated away, but I think it's like 2 days until Mars goes retrograde, and it's going to be coming back to that point where it's in opposition to Pluto. I mean, this is 100% power struggles, and it would benefit you to be aware that that kind of energy is at play. Now, whether the power struggle is happening within you or it's happening with someone else, like, say, a boss or a family member or a friend or even, your spouse, whatever, your footing doesn't seem quite as sure as you thought that it was. And it could be just a tiny, tiny little sliver of you that seems to be concerned about bringing attention to it in a way that ordinarily you would have jumped at the opportunity to do. Now, this is all very interesting because so you've got double moon here. You don't really have a chance to make head nor tail of this under the light of the moon, unless you are to use that energy to go within and work out what it is exactly that is sounding off in you. Now, for some of you, it may be your intuition. It may be a bell that is dinging, that is saying, Aquarius, move very carefully here. Step very carefully. We're in uncharted waters, and ordinarily that's something that Aquarius would actually, really quite enjoy. It's like, yes, I'm at the furthest point away from the sun. Whatever I'm finding here is new and novel and experimental and innovative. And I wonder if some of you have taken for granted the security that's come from the proximity to the sun that you have enjoyed up until this point, right? And the sun representing the orthodoxy and all that kind of thing there, the very thing that you're repelling yourself against all the time. But now we are truly getting properly out there in all sorts of senses, certainly energetically out there. And it's like that moment before you leap off something. Remember once, my late husband and I, he used to work at a ropes, just like a big ropes course thing. And he kept saying, you need to come. And I was like, I'm not mad keen on heights, really. And he was like, no, it'd be great. He was an instructor there, right? So I went around the ropes course, and actually it was pretty fun. Some of it was a little bit like, because I had to, jump off stuff and whatnot. But it wasn't very high. We were talking like 15 feet or something like that. But the very last thing, the kind of big final crescendo was like it was really, really high. I forget how high it was, but, 82 feet. There you go. It was a huge climbing wall. So you went up the climbing wall, and I was up that like a rat up a drain pipe, because I've always been pretty good at climbing. And then you come across this wooden slats, this kind of bridge thing. And the very last thing was a free fall line. I can't remember what they're called, right? It's not a zip line, because you weren't going across. You literally went straight down. And you grabbed hold of it, and you jumped. And the first 41 feet was free fall. And it would only start slowing you down once you hit the halfway point, right? And I hit the deck like a fucking sack of potatoes when I finally did go off it. But I had to really talk myself down off the edge. And I was stood there for about 10 minutes, and I was like, I can't do this. I really can't do this. And he was like, yes, you can. You'll be fine. I'm like, no, I don't like the idea. I'd really rather not. And eventually It was one of the other instructors bringing the first group of the morning up the climbing wall and getting onto the bridge. And my husband said to me, what kind of instructor am I if I can't even get my wife to jump off here? And I was like, whoa, okay, I'm gone. And I jumped. And it was that split second between what he'd said, my comprehension of it, and the realization that I was just about to fucking do this. That feeling there, it is the closest I can approximate to what I'm feeling going on here with you at the moment. It's almost like foggy, right? It's really, really foggy. I'm not sure I can do this. To then there being something, comprehension, action. It feels like it's happening in that order. Interesting that we've got the Seven of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck here, because there's something kind of... For me, the Seven of Pentacles talks about a situation that isn't really panning out the way that we wanted it to, right? It's not giving us the yield that the investment was supposed to create. But there's a certain... dissatisfaction with something. Now, usually when I see this particular card, we're talking about like a kind of predictability, right? My life's just too fucking straight-laced. I fucking hate it. I'm bored out of my fucking mind. Like, I need to do something different, right? It's breaking out of the tedium of having been a certain way. I don't feel like that's true for you here at all. It's another expression of the Five of Swords. It's around the value of things, your personal experience of value, what you value, what you stand for, what really matters to you. It's like you're standing on the edge of something and everything's primed. Not quite, but it's almost there. It's almost primed. What we need is some sort of catalyst. And that's the thing that's catapulting you, trebucheting you out of the fog, out of the mist, out of that very lacking in detail space that you are. Because there's something that you're hunting for, there's something that you're looking for. And I don't know if it's something to make you feel better about whatever this is, or whether it's the thing that pushes you either way in confirming what it is that you will stand for, confirming the level of visibility that you're comfortable with in any given situation. When we come to December, like, it's more intensity. We have the Justice card, the Devil card, and the World card, right? So you've got double Saturn hitting you twice right there in terms of major arcana energy. And then we have this Libran energy, what was the Justice? Venus, right? There's something very principled that is emerging here. Now, you've always been, for me, as far as I'm concerned, you have always been a sign that has dealt in principles and integrity. It's like you've wanted to hold society to a higher level of account than ever it was really able to do. And in all likelihood of society, the workplace, your family, your friends, whoever, right? You take it as it resonates to you. But there's always been a desire to hold everything to a higher standard of ethics, of morality, of principles. And you've always been willing to pick that up and be the person to talk about that. And this resistance here, this little bit of fear that's been going on, has been, like I said, quite uncharacteristic for you. You haven't quite known what to do with it. Now, if that's because you've detected some sort of threat that did not exist before and does now exist, where, you know, things are so unstable now that there are consequences that might not have been present just a few years ago. Was that like that or like that? It feels to me like there's a big glow up for you in December, right? And I know that this is kind of a strange thing to say because the cards maybe is not on the face of it really saying that, but they kind of are saying that at the moment, right? We've got this double slapping of Saturn going on here, both in terms of a higher level, or maybe a lower level of fear that needs to be faced with the devil right here, culminating in the completion of some sort of cycle that you are ready to move out of, ready to move into a new one. Now, when we're talking about the devil, it's really important to understand that the devil and the lovers are the same card. They represent the same situation. But one side of it, the Lover's card, talks about the free will to be in a situation. The devil speaks about the ways in which we are afraid to leave a situation. Whenever the devil shows up, there is some sort of boss level energy that we are looking to deal with. Now, the fact that the moon has shown up twice for you kind of situates it in your subconscious, as far as I can tell. And like I said, I keep saying this, but I do think it is true, that your subconscious seems to have detected some sort of threat that wasn't there before. It's not that you've changed, it's that the situation has changed. And the consequences of that change are more serious than most people realise. There's something kind of emotional that's twinging around in you, and I think that it's making you uncomfortable because you're not quite sure where it's coming from. Now, this could be related to past experiences. I mean, fuck me, it could be related to past life experiences too. But the fact that the Mother of Cups, Queen of Cups, has come up twice, that is speaking to a kind of... Well, you can see it one of two ways, right? You could see it as a smothering energy, because sometimes the Queen of Cups can be like that. Or you could see it as an emotionally unavailable energy. When the moon comes up, your intuition, your emotions, your subconscious, it's all communicating with you. It's all trying to say something to you. There's something here that's firing up in you in December, right? Yes, it involves you facing a fear, and it's a fear that's newly developed. It hasn't always been there, it's just newly developed now. And perhaps it is because the circumstances did not exist before, but they do exist now. This is what this is saying here to me, right? And then we have the Chariot card, which is on its side. Now, that's not a good place for a Chariot card, a Chariot to be, right? The whole point of the Chariot card is that we're trying to avoid the Chariot falling on its side. We're trying to get it to go in a straight line. And we do that by way of balancing all the parts of us. You know, anything that is sitting on a polarity, right? The night and the dark, the light and the night and day, light and dark, anything that has extremes and opposites, the shadow and the conscious mind, like everything needs to be balanced and truly integrated so that we can move forwards. This Queen of Cups here feels to me like you're trying to shut down some sort of emotional thing that is coming up, and that might have worked for you in the past, but it's saying this has sent your chariot off its equilibrium. It is imbalanced. It needs to be brought back into balance. And we see this here. I mean, a Six of Swords is about moving away from a situation. Sometimes when it shows up in the reverse, we can talk about returning to a situation. It's not showing up sideways. It's like, you got to kind of bob around in that water for a little bit. And that's the very thing that you're trying to avoid doing, is bobbing around in the water. But it's what the situation requires, because then we have the Two of Pentacles here. And for me, that is a card of coping. The question is, how are you coping? If your emotions run really, really strong, they're going to push you one way. or another, right? They're going to push you in a direction. But you seem to be trying to maintain a certain status quo, and maybe there is a kind of rigidity around the way that you wish to identify yourself that isn't really matched by the way that you're acting or the things that you will consider doing, this sort of thing. I'm going to take this as it resonates to you. So we've got this maelstrom going on in the background, and we've got this person here who seems to be relatively successfully trying to, avoid paying any attention to that. He's like, oh, I'm just here with my pentacles. It's like the key to this issue for you, Aquarius, is absolutely through sitting down and talking to your emotions and trying to work out what threat it is your subconscious and your nervous system seem to have picked up on. Now, if it's a question of a fixed sign rigidity, then the message is very much allow yourself to flow a little bit. But I think in any event, because when we're talking about the moon, we're talking about lots of things, but we are talking deeply about intuition. If you are shutting down on one part of your emotions, you are shutting down on your intuition, and I do understand why you would do that. It works very well for you as a default, but we are not in normal times, Aquarius. And I do think that the consequences of you not listening to your intuition, right, trying to kind of brazen things out, as often the Queen of Wands will do, rather than deeply feeling it and allowing yourself to be moved by that way, brings with it issues and consequences. Now, yes, it does involve you taking a look at what is currently scaring you that wasn't there before, but it takes you immediately to the world. The whole reading is underpinned by the energy of the Ace of Swords. It's truth, it's integrity, it's an entirely different way to see the world. You're standing on the edge of something, getting ready to jump off. Most of you is ready to jump off, but there's a little sliver of you that's going, what if the mechanism doesn't kick in and catch me? What if I just actually hit the ground like a sack of potatoes and break my neck? You've got to deal with what this fear is, because there's no way of getting around the intensity of the moment. It's very, very strong, and it's very much focused on you. This is the most major arcana energy that I've seen for any sign. There's no way that isn't going to be ever so slightly suffocating. But the way out is a route that you've never tried before, or one that you thought maybe you'd tried and dismissed because it didn't really work for you. It will work this time, but you have to go with it, right? We're talking about turning this Queen of Cups the right way round, so you can dig into what is actually meaningful for you, rather than trying to contract down on perhaps ideological principles that are coming from the mind rather than the heart. I mean, this feels like kind of a complex month for you, Aquarius, but you should probably get used to it, because I think this is going to be you for a little while, But there is a truth that is emerging from this, and I mean, you're going straight to the end here. We're talking about a rapid upscaling in your abilities, in your strength, in all sorts of things, when you choose the path less travelled by you, not by everybody else, because you can't use everybody else as a metric for what you do, because you're Aquarius, right? Quite happy vibing out there furthest away from the sun. Things are different now, though. So now you take the route less travelled by you, and we get rid of whatever this little niggle is that's stopping you feeling comfortable in your own skin. Maybe it's time to grow and grow rapidly. I think that's probably what it is. Right, this is really interesting. I'm going to go over to the extended now, so you're very welcome to join me over there if you would like to. You can do that on Circle, you can do that on Vimeo. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. If that's not your thing, that's absolutely fine. Just understand that I recognise how much pressure you're under, but I also see the way out, and it's not the way that you think it is. got to give a little internally. And I think you'll surprise yourself by how quickly you bob to the surface, you know? Whatever that means for you. All right, know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.